Almost a year ago, we were on the very cusp of divorce. Papers were written up, custody of our son had been decided, and I had been kicked out of the house. But God redeemed us through Bethel. Before our move to South Dakota, we had become strangers living under the same roof. Most nights were spent apart. Our hours at work limited our time together. Our son's sleep schedule left us worn down. Over a period of time, our attention and devotion to each other faded, and I found myself doubting who I was. I lost my sense of self and ultimately became unfaithful to James. I felt God trying to push me away from that life, but because I fell so far down, I didn't have the strength to do it on my own. So I decided to lean on God to intervene, and He did.
Yeah, so after I kicked Kari out of the house, I was pretty much immobilized. Her and Jimmy left out with her mother on this first time. After coming back from deployment that I was without him for a good while, I was pretty much immobilized. I was on the ground crying for an hour. I couldn't pick myself up, but I somehow got on a couch and moved about the time. But there was one point during our separation. I felt like there was no point to anything. And I actually held the pistol in my hand, and I just thought about giving up. Thought about leaving everything behind. But the grace of God was the only thing that stopped me that day. And I felt something come across me, and just a hand move the pistol away from me and take me out of that darkest place I've ever been. I felt that God had something more in store for me and Kari. And I heard about Bethel months ago, before this happened, from a coworker of mine. And I made it a point for us to attend the first service when she returned shortly after Christmas. It was the January 3rd service. And Bethel began to bring us, it was during the Culture of Us series, actually. And we really began to learn about relationships then, and how important it was to be in relationships with God. And it brought us into a relationship with each other that we just had never had, and a relationship with God we never had, and His parents. It was just amazing.
Not only did God restore our marriage, but He brought something to us individually. He began the process of helping me find myself again. Through the job that He blessed me with recently, I see God rebuilding the strong and confident person I used to be. I see Him rebuilding the devoted wife and mother that I was before. But even better, because this new foundation God is building is built on a relationship with Him. And that's the one thing I didn't have before.
It was something neither of us had before. But that restoration we've experienced, and the growth we've seen in our lives wouldn't have been possible if we wouldn't have given our lives to Christ fully, wholeheartedly, and just devoted it to Him with the water baptism. We did this just as an outward expression of the inner change we've experienced. But through the salvation that God has given us, God has also put a great push on my heart. And so in 2 years, when I get out of the military, God pushed it on my heart to move further into ministry, to help guide others back to Him, so they can experience the salvation that me and Kari did.